It's been nearly a year since I last walked you around a huge and diverse collection of queen ants and colonies. Since then, a lot has changed. So many of you regularly ask about how your favourite colony is going. In this week's episode, we'll look at every single queen and colony in our collection, some of which are secret colonies you haven't even seen yet. Also, I'll announce the winner of last week's competition. But first, welcome to another episode of The Ant Keeper, where I upload every week about all things ant related. If you find yourself enjoying this video, then subscribe and join the AK Colony. Your support really helps me out and I really appreciate it. Last week I decided to randomly give away an Oz Ants acrylic nest. Now the most liked comment from last week's video is ant_keeper_Richard. Congrats on being the true winner. Direct message me on Instagram to claim your prize. I really wanted to give that prize away as a huge thank you for all of the support lately. It's been awesome. My next competition will be at 3,000 subscribers, which will probably be around about the end of the year or so. We'll see. In this tour, we'll look at our queens and colonies in test tube setups first, then colonies in the more established outwards last. Now it's worth mentioning I don't know every genera or species of our entire collection. I've decided that if I'm not certain on what the species is, I'll leave it blank. Even if I'm pretty sure, I won't put it down unless I'm absolutely certain. It can be quite tricky to get accurate identifications with so many ants, and it's pretty time consuming too. So I've decided in this video, every queen or colony will have a number. So if you think you know what species it is, let everyone know in the comment section below. Also, if you see a colony you really like that I don't show off very much, be sure to let me know in the comment section what number it is. Starting in no particular order of the test tubes, here is one of my smallest ant colonies. I've had this colony for around about 6 months now, and it's due to swap test tubes. The water reservoir is nearly empty. I love this colony of tiny ants. How cool is the orange on that queen? It really is like no other queen I've seen. Better yet, this colony is doing great with several workers and a respectable pile of brood. All up, this is a pretty great colony that I enjoy admiring. I mean, just look at the bright amber gaster. Isn't it just something special? I've managed to catch and find a few of these queens over the last few months. This particular colony is by far the biggest I've caught, using a black light. They're currently living in their second test tube setup since the first one got moldy after a couple of months. They're almost big enough to move into their very own nest in our world. I love this colony, I think they're great. And here is another colony of the same species, just slightly smaller. I caught this colony about 2 or 3 months ago. I think this is a chromatogaster, but I'm not sure. I was cutting up some firewood and found some workers inside. Sure enough, the entire colony was just under a piece of bark. At the time, I did my very best to rescue every single worker, the queen and all the brood. There was just a queen and about 15 workers, but now they're huge. They're well overdue for a new home. It's worth noting that I don't show off these colonies very often, simply because they're so hard to get a clear video of. So you may not see this tiny colony again for a while, unless you want to. Be sure to let me know. This colony is about 6 months old. I actually found the queen elate in my veggie garden. Since then, they're doing great with their very first soldier arriving recently, which I couldn't find when I was recording. I've noticed something with the really small ants. They often get stuck in the honey I provide for them to consume. When they get stuck, they drown and die. To help prevent this, I've added some structure and dirt. I've noticed with the bigger ants, like the Myrmecia in particular, they often stick dirt and sand to the honey. Then when they eat the honey, they don't get stuck. I'm not sure if this is the reason why they do this, but I decided to try this with the tiny ants, and it worked really well, with rarely seeing a death due to getting stuck. In fact, almost never. If you have a tiny ant species, then you should definitely try this out. This queen was featured in the last ant room tour, but just as a queen. Also in desperate need of a new test tube, this colony is growing quite nicely. I always talk very highly of this queen in my videos. I love this queen. I always have. She's bulky and golden, unlike any other smaller species I've ever seen. This colony is just awesome. This is one of 2 queens I first bought a year ago when I started in ant keeping. I bought this Phaidole queen and a strobe ant. This queen didn't lay eggs for a good 4 or 5 months before laying her first one. Now of course at the time when I started this was pretty frustrating, because all I wanted was to see this ant progress and she wouldn't even lay an egg. In fact, I was certain that I'd bought an infertile queen. Fast forward till now, we have a few workers in this colony and they're starting to pick up momentum. As a fun fact, in Australia there are so many different species of Phytoli, we often refer to them just as Phytoli sp or Phytoli species. In fact, most Phytoli species in Australia aren't even described. What's neat about the two Phytoli colonies we have is that they're different species, both having different coloured workers. I think this is a Brachyponia. I've had this queen for almost a year and she's only just started laying eggs around about a week ago. Crazy, right? Could you imagine having a queen for a whole year and she doesn't even lay an egg? Well, that's exactly what this queen's done. In fact, I've got a few queens that have done that. I was working outside and there was a nuptial flight of these queens everywhere. At the time, I was near a pool and found a couple of these queens just floating, with their wings keeping them afloat like a life jacket. Since then, most of the queens died from being infertile, but not this one, and I'm glad I never gave up on this queen. Just check out the tiny pile of brood in the center of the test tube. Here's a couple of queens I don't know. I caught this queen yesterday as she flew into my car. As an ant keeper, I love surprises like that. Like I often spend hours searching for queen ants, and to just find one that randomly blows onto my car, big deal. Makes my day. If you can, I'd love to know an ID. She kind of looks like a MITE ant worker, but less bulky. Any ideas? Here is another queen I found just yesterday. Again, I have no idea what she is. Maybe a Phytoli queen perhaps? I've said it before and I'll say it again, there's nothing quite like the feeling of finding a queen ant, especially by accident. A Polyrhachis Ammon queen, at least I think she's a queen, I can't quite tell. This is the first time I've really looked at her up close. Do you think she's a queen? I'm not sure. Either way, I'll keep her well fed until we find out. I've got no idea what species this is. Can you see a trend? I should explain, I don't really put a lot of time into trying to figure out what species some of these ants are until I'm confident that they'll survive. You see, in the warmer months, I find new queens almost every day. That being said, I really would like to know what species this queen is. Now I think about it, I think I bought this queen from New South Wales, which is in a different state to where I live. Not sure. I've got so many queens I'm forgetting already. Here is one of my Iridomyrmex species ants. Now I used to call these ants Iridomyrmex bignelli, but then I found out a couple of months ago that all of my trail ants aren't actually bignelli, they're just a different species of Iridomyrmex. So I don't know what species they are, but I know that this is the Iridomyrmex genus. I love raising these trail ants to give to others. I've probably caught, let go, and given away over 20 of these colonies within the last year. And the reason for that is because they really are the best beginner ants in Australia. And as you can see, here's another one. I think these two colonies are the only two I haven't given away yet. So if you're a friend of mine and you want one, ask me and I'll send it to you. Another camper noticed that I've forgotten the ID of. Yep, still can't remember. I've been trying to wrap my head. I was looking everywhere. I'm sure I wrote down the name for this ant, but I can't remember. And it surprises me because I love how contrasting the colours are on this queen, although I fear she may be infertile. Time will tell. At least I will be able to share this wonderful queen with you while she is in my care. Isn't she just amazing? I caught these two queens running around with their wings on a little while back. Since then, they have produced 2 workers, and now the weather is warming up, a new batch of brood with one tiny larvae. How exciting is that? Again, if you know what the species is, let me know. Finally, a queen I know, the Campanose loni. Another queen I caught using the black light setup a few months ago. Here is the other Brachyponia queen that I found in the pool. Again, very slow going with just a couple of eggs very recently. Another Iridomyrmex species? This is a queen I really want to know the ID of. She looks just a little bit too big to be a trail ant queen in my opinion, and her gaster is just really silver. And almost as cool as a silver gaster is how busy she's been, laying so many eggs. I can't wait to see how this colony goes and what the workers will look like. Another Campanose I'm not sure about. I promise you, I know what the majority of the ants I have are. It turns out I didn't realize when I was making the script, 2 things. One, I have a lot of ants of the same species, I didn't really realize. And second, I have a lot of ants, especially Campanotuses, that I have no idea what they are. I just catch them and I feed them, and then weeks and then months go by, and all of a sudden I realize I still have this queen ant and I don't even know what she is yet. But those contrasting colours, they're cool, hey? I found this elate a couple of weeks ago clinging onto the edge of my house during a storm. Since then, she hasn't been in a hurry to start laying. I hope she does though. I love the species of Polyrhachis. Now we're getting into some of the ants that are a little bit more exciting. Starting with this one, this undescribed species of Camponotus, which is a very special colony. One of hundreds of species of ants that are undescribed in central parts of Australia. Some of the AK colony has fairly wondered if this is in fact a honeypot ant. You can't just go by the seller's word all the time. As it turns out, I happen to know an entomologist, and this entomologist has shared the pictures of this colony to others, including an expert that works in a museum who specializes in ant identification, as well as another entomologist who is considering their verdict on exactly what type of Camponotus this is. So if you lost count, 3 experts, leaders in the field in Australia, have given me their opinion on the ID of this colony. Until I get more information, which hopefully will be in the next couple of weeks, I'll wait before I share the final verdict with you, the AK colony. This is a small colony of a species that I love to show off whenever I can. The Myrmecia purpureus is one of my absolute favorite ants thanks to their aggressive behavior and deep red and purple hues. Another ant I love is the Camponotus concebrinus. This cute little colony was a spur of a moment purchase. I'm not sure why I bought them, but I'm glad I did. I've had a couple of these banded sugar ants and the queens all look slightly different, with some being lighter in colour, while this one being much darker than all the other queens I've got. How cool is that? The crazy ant. Now this colony hasn't changed much since I first showed them off a couple of weeks ago. They're just happy ticking away, doing their thing. Sitting, doing nothing. I'm not in a rush, and neither are they. Sometimes colonies take a while to get going in winter, and that's okay. I featured this colony in a recent YouTube short, but they were very much younger than just a small pile of brood. I love the colour diversity that exists in the Polyrhachis genus. When I observe this colony, it makes me want more and more ants. Better put them away since I clearly have enough. The next 4 are the greenhead ants, some of which are the elates I caught this week, one of which has died, and I haven't included that in the list. The elates, of course, I caught last week, and they were the first queens I caught this season. Notice how the progression varies between the year-old colonies to the brand new elate? Amazing what a year can do. I recently moved this Polyrhachis from a founding Ozant's acrylic nest in Outworld to this homemade YTONG nest in Outworld. This colony's doing really great, with a few elates. As you can imagine, coming from a founding nest to what they have now, they're all way overdue for a new home. And funny enough, they're filling up this home really well. I'm actually really excited to see how this colony goes, given that they have elates. We're getting up to the months now where the elates will want to fly out in search of other elates to make a new colony. If I manage to be home when they do that, I'll be sure to share that with you. Number 32 is a secret Polyrhachis. This colony is secret. This colony is a secret to be revealed next week. I know I said I'd share all the secrets with you, but this is one I'm not. You have to wait until next week before I show you what's underneath the cover. It's the only secret I've got at the moment, I promise. This Camponotus concebrinus has been living behind the scenes for a while. I bought the queen on her own a while back and have progressively raised her to the size she is now. The colony is on the cusp of a population explosion. They're outgrowing the test tube home and will be moving house soon. Definitely before the next generation starts getting their first steps. I'll be sure to keep you updated when they do make the big move. Given that we already have a couple of Camponotus concebrinus colonies, I really don't share this colony that much. If you want to see more of this colony, let me know. This is my golden tail sugar ant that I bought a few months back. She was doing great, then suddenly all her workers died. Then the day after, I noticed all her brood dying off too. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. This fragile queen was almost certainly next to go, but somehow she has shown a sign of resilience and bounced back with a small colony again. Okay, I've been waiting to get to this one. This is my problem child. I've been having non-stop problems and I'm on the verge of letting this colony go. The problem is they keep finding ways to escape, and I mean that they are discovering holes that I didn't even know exist in these setups. Now I check these colonies every day, generally in the afternoon, and on the weekends I check in morning and afternoon. The problem is that every single time that the ants find a new way to escape, a couple of hundred workers disappear. This has happened 3 or 4 times in a row, and so that's been happening, and here we are. This is what we've got left. Funny enough, the queens can't escape, so they keep laying eggs and producing more workers. So with that being said, I'm finding it impossible to contain this colony. Worse yet, when they do escape, they actively try and harm every colony around them, literally trying to kill them. So I've been keeping this colony in my laundry, far away from the ants room. I wanted to see if anyone had any suggestions on what to do. I really don't want to let them go, but I can't risk losing other colonies from these escaped workers. To be honest, I think I've made my decision, but I think we should talk about it first. Let me know what you think. Our giant sugar ants are doing swell. Well, that was a typo, but I'm keeping it in there. They've actually had a couple of workers emerge out of their cocoons recently. In fact, one of which was doing it when I was filming. Overall, I'm happy with their progress, and with the queen recently laying a nice batch of eggs. I'm pumped, they're happy and doing well. As I said before, we're just coming out of winter, so most of these colonies and queens have been pretty slow going. Hopefully it won't be too much longer and we can start to see this colony expand and use up more of this space. I think this is currently my favourite colony right now. They're just so interesting to watch. They're always active and ready. Like a swarm of piranhas, these agile little workers are always hungry. I'm hoping this colony will explode in size and be big enough to move into a bigger tank. Maybe some sort of naturalistic setup. What do you think? Wouldn't that be cool? Yes, another banded sugar ant. I think this is the third colony. This colony has begun to outgrow the beautifully made exotic ant's nest and outworld. There is a sense of urgency with this colony that we'll have to move them out once all these cocoons hatch. Is that the right word? To hatch out cocoons? Anyway, that's two colonies of the same species that are in need of a bigger home. I noticed this colony in particular likes to use that water from the water feeder to make the sand wet and sticky. Now what's interesting is they've done this to make more room for their brood. That's pretty clever, don't you think? This Polyrhachis constantly breaks the homemade fluon barrier, making feeding and overall maintenance a pain. Although I think I know the reason for this. I reckon the elates in this colony are getting close to wanting to fly out in search of the new partner to start the colony. Honestly, this colony really needs the room, considering the queen is a powerhouse, laying eggs almost every day. Definitely one of the biggest colonies we have right now. Another green head ant colony. Considering we have quite a few of these colonies, I decided to try something different. I removed the nest I made and let them nest in the sand, like they would in the wild. With a nice pile of brood cooking in the oven, I think they'll do well in the warmer months. Alright, let's get into the Myrmecias in our collection, including some of the secret ants I've been hiding from you. We have 3 Myrmecia nigrocentas in our collection. First we have a lone queen, then a queen with a worker, and a colony with around 15 workers. This species is pretty easy to keep for a few reasons, but mostly because they're not picky eaters. All the other species of Myrmecia are fussy eaters. That being said, 95% of all deaths I've had in the past 6 months have all been bull ant workers. I'm not sure exactly why, I'm still trying to figure that out. But what I've learned so far is that this genus requires more care throughout all the species. For example, the nigrocenta will eat anything I throw in there, however all the other species won't. Also, I've learnt that none of the Myrmecia genaria will take dead protein. They're just not interested. There has to be some sort of life left in it. Now, I know a lot of people are against live feeding, and trust me, I am too. But these ants just won't eat a dead cricket. At least, at best, not consistently. Something else I've noticed is just how much water these ants drink compared to other ant genaria. Now it makes sense because of the size, they drink more water, but man, they drink a lot more water. Almost every test tube I have for these ants is half empty. That's only in a month. The very popular Myrmecia brevinota has been quite a pleasure to own. Of all the colonies I have, this colony watches me the most, often leaving the nest to come out to see what's going on. Something I've noticed is the workers in this colony are especially hard workers. They constantly move the brood around the setup to keep the brood at the perfect temperature, doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Myrmecia nigroceps was one of the first bull ants I had the chance to own. These girls have been going steady, although they did lose a worker around 2 months ago, shortly after I moved them into the setup. Maybe it was stress of the move, I'm not sure exactly, but it certainly was disappointing. Since then, this colony has shown no signs of slowing down. They regularly move about, devouring whatever cricket I place inside. The giant brown and red bull ants that I featured recently have been steady during the cooler months, so not much has changed in the couple of weeks since I showed them off. This includes their constant urge to murder me every time I open the lid of their outworld. The golden-tailed bull ant is the only bull ant species I've ever found, and this queen has been going well considering how long I've had her for. I mean look, she has a worker. I love seeing this little worker. In fact, this is my favorite worker in our collection, just because she's so special. This species will only eat if I half kill a cricket and place it right next to them, almost blocking their path to get out. Otherwise, they will starve. This has taken me quite a while to figure out. For those that have been watching my videos for a few months would know I've actually caught 4 or 5, let's say 5 of these queens, and they've all died except for this one. Now, of the 5, 3 of them didn't lay eggs, so it's possible they were infertile, and they all died within a month of finding them, and 2 of them did lay eggs, including this one. It's difficult to pin down exactly why the others didn't make it. There really are many different variables at play, but regardless, I tried to learn from my mistakes and really analyze how I could improve for next time. It seems I've now worked it out and I'm having a great run with this colony. I can't wait to see how this colony progresses in the future. The next 2 ants are the secret ants. These are 2 I haven't shared yet because I wanted to see how they'd go first. Let me welcome you to our Myrmecia Polyrhachis queen. If you couldn't already tell, I really enjoy having a vast, diverse range of different ant genera. Especially lately, I've been really getting into Myrmecias. I love their charismatic nature, and this queen certainly does not disappoint. I love everything about this species. They're just, I can't explain. You know, I think about this sometimes when I try and describe why I like a particular ant. This reminds me of a snake YouTuber I used to watch about 10 years ago. He always features snakes in his videos and would talk about how this particular ball python is his favorite, then 3 months later he would talk about another snake, which, you guessed it, would be his favorite. And I look at that, having many snakes myself at the time, and thought, well, they can't all be your favorite, like you gotta have one favorite. But you know what, I get it now. I look at this new queen and all I think is how much I love the species and how she is my favorite. I guess they call that passion. I'll be sure to give another update on this queen soon when she lays her first lot of eggs. Lastly, we have yet another secret ant, this time the baby bull ant. This is truly a special species. Probably the most special in our collection. What's so special about this ant? Well, not a lot is known about this species, so we have an awesome opportunity to share what we learned to the ant keeping community. Also, we are lucky enough to hold a dual queen colony. What's cool about that is there are very few Myrmecia species that can sustain 2 queens living together. The queens look a lot like Myrmecia polyrhachis workers, and so they often get mistaken for those and don't get noticed. Here are my observations so far with these queens. First, I never see them eat, although I know they have, since the crickets are placed in there show signs of consumption. They have eaten their brood twice over too. Both times they had 3 to 5 eggs and 0 to 1 larvae. It seems to me that one of the queen is laying the eggs, since there's always just one queen guarding over them, and occasionally I see the other queen going out for walks. I'm most excited about this dual queen setup more than any of the other colonies. So let's see how these 2 girls go. Over the past year or so, we've had many queens and colonies die, for just about every possible reason. Some died because I was still learning and doing something wrong, some didn't make it because of the ant invasion we had a few weeks ago, and some of the queens simply were not fertile. With losing so many colonies, there are certainly a few that I miss the most. One of those is the very first Myrmecia nigricenta colony, which was murdered in the ant invasion. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave the link in the video description below. That particular colony was special to me, being my first ever bull ant, and the motivation behind me buying another 3 to replace them. Another sad loss was the very first queen I ever bought, the strobe ant. This queen had 2 workers and really didn't stand a chance against an amateur ant keeper like me. I made just about every mistake you could possibly make in ant keeping. Regardless, one day we'll get another strobe ant colony in replacement. The last colony that stands out to me was the weaver ant colony. You may have noticed wasn't in the video already. The colony was actually doing really well with over 40 workers. In fact, I was preparing a new video to move this colony into a new setup. Until one day when I went to feed this colony, the queen was dead. I've got no idea why she died. So I really just put it down to that green weaver ant colonies are just known for being really difficult to raise from a queen. Regardless, I've learnt a lot about raising green weaver ants and overall husbandry with all of our colonies. So I feel we've got a great head start on how to care for them next season. Speaking of queens and colonies to buy, I do have a shopping list which I'll briefly share some of the species with you. First is the Phydolia antipodum. Where is this queen, you may ask? Well, I actually secured a queen with a few dozen workers, but the queen died in the post getting to my house. Now this is pretty incredible, since I've only ever had one other colony die in the post before. In Australia, where I live, Express post is 1 to 3 days. Most ants can make the trip just fine, although unfortunate incidents do happen from time to time. As it turns out, the most wanted queen picked by the AK colony is also one of the rarest. Be assured though, I will find another one eventually, and we can finally raise that colony together. Next is the Green Weaver ant colony. I'll get another one, or maybe a few queens next season, when they become available in my area. Also, I want to buy the very common and well-known honeypot ant. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to write it on the screen. This is a genus I've wanted for a while, and I think would make a great addition to our collection. A few other ants I really would like to get in the future perhaps is the trapjaw ant. I think that would be awesome, and maybe some more Myrmecia species. If you made it this far, then make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. It really helps me out. Also, have you subscribed and become part of the AK colony? If you haven't, then what are you waiting for? Subscribe and be a part of one of the fastest growing colonies here on YouTube. I'd like to know from you, which is your favorite ant in our collection, and why? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you everyone for watching this week's episode. I'll see you on the next one. Until then, ant keepers unite.